Sebastian, we are on. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yes. Okay, so we are here to follow up on the three goals from SquadUp. It's been a couple of months.
Hmm.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It
Can you
does,
believe
yeah.
it?
Two
It
months later, right?
feels like we just did this, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Crazy.
1 month or so ago, not 2 months.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but before I get started down that road, you just said you celebrated your birthday this weekend. So happy birthday. I'm not gonna
Thank
sing
you.
because you don't want me to sing, but happy birthday. And you did something super cool. Do you mind sharing it?
Yeah, so we went to, it's called Southwick. It's in Massachusetts here where I live, but it's a professional dirt bike race. I've been going there every year in literally every single year of my life except for COVID because they had the track shut down.
Yeah.
Um, but I've been riding since I was 5 or 6 years old, bikes and dirt bikes. So it's something that I love to do. And this particular track every year, I go, my brother and my father, because we all live in Massachusetts or New
Yeah.
England anyway. So yeah, it's one of our favorite days of the year. So it was a good time.
Wow. How many people go to this and actually
Well,
participate?
yeah, apparently in 2021, because it was on the news right after obviously COVID 2020, they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So 2021, the news reported like 30,000 people. Um, I
Whoa.
don't know about this year, but I would think close to that amount.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, I
And
mean
you do it every year.
it's the top guys in the world. They come. Most of them live in California and Florida, and they drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like NASCAR, all the big guys, the top guys. So. But it's still bikes.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so what is that like what is the distance? How far or how much are you driving the course?
So
Is it
it's about recorded on laps. So it's
okay.
actually 30 minutes, half an hour plus two laps, and a
Okay.
lap is about 2 minutes or so. So it's about, I don't know, 15, 17 laps, and then they do two of those. So there's two classes, 250s, which are smaller bikes, and 450s, which are faster, and
Okay.
each of those classes do 2 half-hour races in the day.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so do you have both kind of bikes so that you can participate in both, or does that usually happen?
No, I mean,
No?
I do have a 250 that I can ride in the small class, but the
Yeah.
problem is my skill level. I'm not pro, so like I
Oh,
said, these are the best guys in the world. So if I was racing that day, I would not be here right now. I would still,
oh,
honestly, I would still probably be in real estate buying rental properties, but it would just be passive. I would have a property
yes.
manager, to build wealth. But yeah, I
Exactly.
wouldn't be working a regular job.
Okay, okay. Man, that's awesome. So this is like the NASCAR of bikes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So they just do they this so this is once a year or they do it
Yeah, so once a year at this track, but they have I don't know, 15 or so races that they do in different states all across the
Okay.
country.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay, so that's like the Daytona and then there's other tracks.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. I gotcha. I gotcha. I've been on a motorcycle twice in my life. And one time when I was like 4 years old and it was my uncle's bike, and my mom was like, no, she can sit on, that's it. You can't take her for a ride. So I didn't even get to go for a ride.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, at that young of an age, I can certainly see. When was the
Yeah.
last time you were on it?
Oh, I was 16.
Okay.
It was just a regular motorcycle. Now I have a really good friend. She had bikes for the longest time, and then she met her husband because he builds bikes, and
Hmm.
he builds really nice, like custom, gorgeous. This is Yeah, like these bikes they've actually won awards at shows
Wow.
for how gorgeous and meticulous and all of the things. Yeah, he does all kinds. He's great with his hands. He builds cars, he builds bikes, he does all the things. But yeah, she met him when she had an accident on her bike and needed to get it repaired, and she took it to where he worked, and the rest is history. Now they're together. I was like, see, maybe you were supposed to wipe out so that you can meet your future husband.
Yeah.
You never know,
I'm
right? There's
sure.
always the silver lining. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, and happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
You had talked about your goals, one of them being that you were going to help a newbie get their first goal. How is it going?
Yeah, so I have right up here on the wall the check that I got back from it. So we completed it on June 20th of this year. So literally 10 days ago.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Woo!
Yeah. So it was, I'll just give like a brief rundown. It was a
Yeah,
wholesale
yeah.
deal. She was a wholesaler, and me being in the gator community, our whole philosophy is, well, one of them, there's several ways we can make money, but one of them is lend on the earnest money deposit. So
Yes.
I searched earnest money deposit needed in Pace's free creative real estate Facebook group, and
Okay.
I seen her comment or post, right, and I direct messaged her and saying I could offer the money to fund the earnest money, and she was like, okay. We kind of got into more conversation and realized she was new. I mean, I am too, so it was just a cool story. But because she didn't have much of a buyer's list built up, I offered like, hey, I can help you probably find a buyer too, or at least I can try. She was like, okay, that's great. So what
Yeah.
ended up happening was, because it was a foreclosure, there was an auction date that was set like 4 or 5 days out from the time that me and her got into conversation. So
Yeah.
yeah, the seller of the property, he actually inherited it from his mother who passed away, but they were just, put his head in the sand for so long. And then about literally less than a week or so away from the auction date, he was like, okay, we're going to sell. So this is when him and the wholesaler agreed to sell. So, like just in the meantime of the 4 or 5 days, I submitted the paperwork to Pace and Abraham to fund the deal. But it was such a short notice because there was also a weekend thrown in there too. So that
Yeah.
that helped complicate it. Didn't help it, but that
Yes.
complicated it more.
Right.
And then when I was, searching in the creative real estate Facebook group for cash buyers in Atlanta, I messaged a few people. One of them responded, and he was actually another wholesaler, and he was going to find an end buyer, which he did. But he offered to fund the earnest money deposit because of such a short timeline.
Yeah.
So ultimately what ended up happening was I didn't fund the earnest money deposit, but I still JV'd on the deal because I brought the buyer, and that's
Yes.
how I got paid out. And he funded the earnest money deposit. That's wholesaler B in this case. Um,
Right.
he found the actual end buyer, and we closed the
Okay.
deal. But
Nice.
so the original close of escrow date was May 24th, and I got this check on June 20th. So there was about 3 or 4 weeks where there was delays from not having, problems with the title. The attorney
Okay.
wasn't able to get clear title for about 3 or 4 weeks. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so with the foreclosure, with the auction date happening that quickly, what were you guys able to do to stop that from happening so that you could proceed with the sale? Because it sounds like you were cutting it really close. Is there some kind of document or something you can do to get that on pause?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we were all on a group call, me, the originating wholesaler, and then wholesaler B, the end buyer.
Yeah.
We were all on a group call Sunday night, the night before the auction day. So the auction day was on a Monday morning. We were all on a group call on Sunday night trying to figure out what to do. And we figured we would call the attorney first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And when the wholesaler called the attorney, she said the auction date had been postponed, which is awesome, or canceled. But anyway,
Oh,
they weren't having the auction. But she
okay.
wasn't able to tell us why, just because of, I don't know, whether
Huh.
it's, yeah, whatever legal issue. But
Yeah.
she wasn't able to disclose it.
Okay.
So we didn't know why it got, canceled. But I guess that
And
really
to
saved
be,
us, I think. So yeah.
yes, that's so wonderful. Okay. So I cannot think of the name. I know I've heard Pace or different ones talking about there's some kind of document you can get in there, submit it so that it can stop the auction. So it kind of puts them on notice that it is under contract. Maybe it's just the contract itself, but I hadn't really paid attention too much to the foreclosure stuff because that's not where my focus has been. But I
Mhm.
do remember hearing that. So maybe someone listening to this can put it in the comments and say, yeah, this is the thing that you need to stop an auction. But luckily it stopped and you were able to continue. It didn't go to auction. So you basically, it sounds like you got a connector fee then basically by JVing and bringing everybody together.
Yeah, technically, I guess that's what it would be called. Is connected.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Okay, so and that was your second goal, right? Was well, technically your second goal was to get your first lending deal.
Yeah.
So
So
how did
that
that?
one, I didn't technically lend the money. So,
Yeah.
but I will say that I did do a PML deal, private money lending deal on. And the funny thing is, I wired the money on June 19th or 18th, or so. Like we signed the documents on June
Yeah.
18th. So within 2 days, I did my first two deals in the community, and I've been in since January of this year. So about six
Yeah.
months in, didn't do a deal, and then within 2 days I did two of them. So technically speaking, yeah, I guess I did do both my first two goals: do a deal with someone new in the community, and then do my first lending deal.
Yes. What do you think changed for you to be able to do
Well,
those two deals?
I think I think a lot of it has to do with like I'm big on like the power. What do they call it? The law of attraction, right? So like hanging around with people. The more you hang around with people that are doing the things like in real estate, the more
Yes.
open or like more likely you are to get into real estate. So I think going to a lot of meetups, I was going to all the sub two meetups I could. I host my own real estate investor meetups, talking with people in the community. This wasn't a goal I had, the last 60 days, but my first 3 months in the Gator community, I set a goal to myself to meet with 3 new people a day. So I think just always talking to new people, it kind of rubs off on me and makes me motivated to put in the work and do the deals. But I think it's a little bit of a coincidence, honestly, to just do my, because like I said, the earnest money deposit deal that I ended up connecting on,
Yeah.
that was supposed to close in May, but it ended up closing in June just because of delay. So I think it was a
Right.
little bit coincidental that I ended up doing my PML deal just 2 days before that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a matter of talking to people and just putting in the work and finding
Yeah.
opportunities.
Right. Putting in those reps, showing up consistently,
Hmm.
right? So you mentioned the Zooms. You're doing meetups as well, and that I think was your third goal, right? You wanted to create weekly Zooms that would focus on mindset and accountability, maybe
Hmm.
helping newbies get started. How's that going?
Yeah, so I started that. I want to say we're on our third week now, so mid June ish.
Yeah.
And yeah, my original goal was to have like a mindset, kind of like a mastermind where people come in and just talk about, morning routines, what they're doing throughout the day to keep positive mindsets, because
Yes.
mindset is 90% of success, people say, right? Um, so that I'm still hosting those, but it's kind of transformed into more of like a book club from the people that, have come in, the attendees. So
Yeah.
what we're reading right now is Think and Grow Rich, which is, I've read it
Mm.
once before, but rereading it the second time now, it's by far my favorite book. And it's like, I've been doing, I don't know if you've read it or anyone watching, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of, like steps to take and exercises to do. And I've
Okay.
just been, the first time I read through it, I just read through the book and didn't really do what the author was saying. But now I'm, you know, doing all the exercises. So one of them is like 10 minutes a day. Every day you want to do like self-confidence affirmations. So there's a lot of affirmations in there, a lot of visualization and meditating. So I'm doing that every day. But yeah, we're just going over the book, reading it. And because when you read in a group, especially books that are like very like nonfiction that are very philosophical
Yes.
almost, it's very easy for me anyway to let stuff like slip through the cracks and not really pick up on what the author's trying to get to you, the point they're trying
Yeah.
to make. So rereading it in a group is like reread it and then we talk over, what each person picked up, and it really helps solidify and cement in your mind different, philosophies or just things to know. So
Yes. Well, it goes back to, that law of attraction, right? When you're surrounding yourself with other people and, with similar goals, right? Similar
exactly.
mindset. And then now you're going to focus on this new information, right? Everybody's going to be coming at it from their own perspective. And it's very easy for you to pick up on something that you're resonating with, and you share that with somebody else and they didn't pick up on that. But now because you're highlighting it, now it's like, oh wow, I didn't see that, or I didn't think of it that way. And that's the beauty of doing that, right? Of having a book club and or sharing those ideas from books. I can't tell you how many times since I started reading or listening to books that somebody says something and I'm like, oh yes, I remember this from Focal Point, or I remember this from 10X or Traction, or the different books that I've read. And so it's super, super helpful. And I think that also kind of helps you with having something that everybody can focus on for the meetings too, right? And you're not just everybody gets together and now what, right? Like you got
Yeah.
something that you're focusing on, which is the book. Let's talk about the book. So that's awesome. So 3 weeks you've been doing it.
Yep.
Nice. How did you decide on that particular book to start with?
So the first meeting, there was only three of us that attended, and it was kind of, a smaller group. We were like, hey, the idea just got thrown out there because
Wow.
Think and Grow Rich is a very focused on mindset. So
Yes.
that was just like naturally flowed into the conversation, and we were all decided like, hey, why not just reread it? And like I said, I don't know, have you read that book before? Think and Grow Rich?
It's on my list. It's on my
No, okay.
list. And you're like the third person, I think, in the last 2 weeks that has mentioned it. So I feel like God is telling me I need to read this book.
Yeah,
I need to get it
definitely
back.
read
Yes.
it. One of the reasons like why reading it in a group is beneficial for us is that
Yeah.
book was, I don't know, I'm trying to look here at the copyright date, but like early 1900s. It's an old book, so it's kind of like
Wow.
it's like old English language, some of it, so it's
Okay.
makes it even more hard to interpret.
Yeah.
So having it in a group discussion, it's like, okay, maybe I might be thinking the author is trying to get a different point across than what he is, and then somebody
Yeah.
might be like, no, here's my point on it. So
Yes, yes, I like it. Okay, yeah. So I've gone back and I'm re-listening to Focal Point and I'm taking notes on that. And I'm actually sharing it with my team at my job. And because I really like how it helps with creating that focus. I think people get super overwhelmed when there's, especially coming into real estate, right? Coming into the sub two group, there's so many options out there, right?
yeah,
And
overall.
how do you focus on the things that are going to help you be successful? And so Focal Point by Brian Tracy, I think it is. He walks you through that, and just so many little golden nuggets there that I feel like I'm just sitting there putting all these notes in from everything that I'm listening to. And part of me is like, maybe I should just buy the book, like the
Right.
hardback, right? Like just buy the book. But then I feel like, well, part of learning, you have the different modalities, right? People can learn from listening, people can learn from seeing, from doing, right? And then if you put all of that together, that's when you really learn, right? When you can hear it and see it and do it, put it into action. You can feel it, all of the things. If you can put all your senses into it, you're more likely to really truly understand the thing, absorb it, right? And then when you can turn around and teach somebody else that thing, now you really know you've conquered the content, right? And so I've delayed buying the book because I feel like me putting these notes in is part of me getting that, absorbing that information. And then what I'm going to do is I'm sharing this with my team at our team building meetings every month. And as I pick up on things, I'm also posting it in our teams group to help people with focusing on some goals, and then looking at, okay, how are we taking the actions? Kind of like what I've been doing with the podcast. This is what I'm doing at work. What are our goals, and what are the actions that we're taking towards those goals? And it doesn't have to be professional. It could be personal goals. Like, I want to lose 20 pounds by the end of this year. What are my actions that I'm going to take to reach that goal? And so, yeah, so I think these books are awesome. I have to thank Jesse Stanton for finally convincing me to get on Audible, because I was always like, yeah, I don't have time to read books, but I can listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to an event, an online event that Tony Robbins did last year, and he was talking about net. There's no extra time. So in those spots of time where you think you've got extra time, that's when you should be absorbing information. You should be learning something, listening to a podcast, listening to a book, doing that. So you can be driving or making dinner or grocery shopping or whatever, and you're listening to something that you can learn and take and use for the next thing, right? So that's what I started doing, and I went through so many books. But then I've paused because I got this list, right? Like Thinking Rich, that book is on my list. It's been on my list. But what I was thinking of is I've listened to all these books, but how many things have I put into action from everything that I've listened to? I put some things into action, but I know I have heard so much more that I could use that I have not put into action. And so that's where I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to commit to re-listening to these books and really trying to put these things into action. And this was the first, I was like, time management is huge, right? The consistency has been a challenge for me. And I think a big part of the challenge with being consistent is because I'm not managing my time as good as I could or as well as I could. So that's where I focused on, okay, focal point. I know he's going to tell me Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. That's probably going to be the next one I listen to again. I actually did buy that hardback too.
How is it? I haven't written it yet.
Oh, Buy Back Your Time. Okay, I actually spoke to Dan Martell. It was awesome. Like it was by mistake, actually. Like, and some people would be like, there's no such thing as coincidences or mistake. Like, you were supposed to. I guess that was the case. Maybe that's what I needed to hear right then. But it was so funny because I started following him on Instagram. So whenever he does when he goes live, I get the notification. So I hopped on And I was listening to him, and I was going through, and I see all the buttons and stuff. And I hate to say it, but I'm still learning the social media
I
stuff.
am too. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm not the
Don't
only
feel
one.
bad.
I tapped something that put me in the room with him. It like flagged him, and he's like, "Stephanie, you're up." And I was like,
Oh crap! Right?
I'm
Yeah.
not ready for that. I'm like, oh, I had no makeup on. I think I had my beanie on, or I don't know. My hair looked like a hot mess, and I had no makeup on, and I was probably in sweats. And I was holding the phone. I was holding the phone like, and he's like, I can't see you. I see the ceiling. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't want you to see. So I'm like half my face. Because I'm not ready to be on camera
Yeah.
here. I was not prepared for this. So, but he was awesome. The book just it's another one of those things. I think between Buy Back Your Time and Focal Point, there is no reason why you can't successfully manage your time. They have a lot of the same uh, ideas, but I think Dan Martell takes it to a whole other level. And also, I will say, I enjoyed listening to Dan reading his book. Like, he actually reads the book in Audible,
Oh,
whereas
cool.
for Focal Point, somebody else is reading it. I don't think
Hmm.
it's Brian Tracy. The Focal Point, when you're listening to that, it's kind of dry. It is. So I warn you, there's a lot of good stuff in there, but it's kind of dry. Buy Back Your Time, Dan, it's like as if he's talking to you. It doesn't feel like he's just reading a book. And I think he ad libs a little bit too, which I just love, love, love. So, yeah. So if you're going to have to pick a book about managing time, I would say start with Dan Martell. That's what I did.
Buy Back Your Time.
Buy Back Your Time. That's what I would start with. And he talks about a lot of good stuff with figuring out what your time is worth, which I think is huge. Dan talks about that. I don't remember really hearing that too much in Focal Point, about really thinking about what is your time worth. And I think that triggers a couple of things when you think about it from that perspective of what is your time worth. You have to think about what you do and how you provide value, right? And this is something that I've talked about with Miguel and different ones. You do add value. Some people don't. I think they struggle with that. They struggle with figuring out how do they help others? How can they help others when they're new or whatever? But you are creating value somewhere, somehow. And what is your thing that you do, and how much is that worth to somebody else? Right? How much do you get paid to do the thing that you do? And when you look at it that way, now you can say, okay, I get paid this much to do these kind of tasks. Well, then if I'm doing all these other things that are not creating that value, then I need to do something with that. I need to delegate that to somebody else. I need to do I even need to keep doing this thing? Maybe I was doing it because there was a need for it at some point, but things have changed. I have a new system, or we have new people doing that. So why am I doing it? They can do it. That goes back to delegate, or maybe we don't have to do it at all. So Dan, I like the way that he starts with, think about where you are empowered and how you create value and what is that worth. And then when you start thinking about all the things that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing, that do not fit into how you add value, then now you take that into account. I could pay somebody else $5 less than what I would be paid for doing that, right? So if somebody's willing to do that for less than what I make doing it, then I can delegate that to them. That feeds into how they add value. So I'm helping them create that value that they bring. And now, because they're doing that and living up to their superpower and how they add value, I can focus on the thing that I am empowered to do, that I create value for. So that's just one thing that Dan talks about. And I'm probably not doing it justice. You just have to read the book or listen to Dan read the book, and then just put those things into action. Like you said, this book, you listened to it before, but you didn't really get too much out of it, right?
Mhm.
Now you're going back through it and you're being more intentional with it, and you're following the exercises and doing the things that he's telling you to do. So I think it would be great to circle back and see what kind of changes you've ended up making from this. Like, that could be cool. That could help other people. Awesome. Well, how do people get a hold of you?
So you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook, but Instagram's where I'm most active, and it's Instagram/SebastianRoy.realtor.
Okay. All right. You got it, guys. So you still want to do some gator lending, right?
Yep.
So anybody who needs that, they can reach out.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for joining me. And like I said, happy belated birthday. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks again. Yeah. Glad to be here, and we'll definitely be in touch.
All right. Take care. Thanks.
All right. Bye.